Hey, what's up, Gnomies? Man, this has been some kind of week. The past few days have just been weird as far as the weather goes. We've had some of the coldest temperatures of winter. In fact, the coldest temps of the year here in the Mid-South for the last few days. It's not exactly warm and toasty out here today, but it's the best it's been in a few days, and the first day that I'm willing to get out here and do a little bit of work on Pearl and share it with you, okay? But I tell you, been some strange stuff going on. We have had chilly temperatures here, way down in the teens at night, but we haven't had any precipitation. However, 300 miles to the south of me, it snowed 10 inches. Let me say that again. 300 miles to the south of me, it snowed 10 inches. Yeah, not north, south. Now, you can call it, climate change, or you can call it a natural cycle, or you can just deny that anything's happening, whatever you want to feel about it. But I tell you what, the weather is messed up. And that's any way you look at it. So we're just going to do the best we can here today while it's not absolutely bone-chilling cold out here, and see if we can get back on our starter problem here on Pearl. Now, you may remember last week we determined the starter was good. We took it off because I was pretty sure it was going to be bad, so I went ahead and took it off to test it. Well, it ain't bad. So now I got to put it back on and look for what is really wrong. But I've had some pretty good suggestions from a lot of you out there on where to look first. So, what do you say we get that starter back on and we start looking? Okay, time for the editor insert. Because it was right about here during this workday that things kind of snowballed, if you'll pardon the term, and tumbled downhill, although we didn't have any snow. You see, I'm under Pearl. I'm trying to get that starter back in. I have to hook those two wires back up and then get the starter back up in place and get the bottom bolt snugged up. You don't want to get too tight, but snug it up. And then you put the top bolt in. That's the procedure you have to follow. So I'm under there, and first of all, I get the wires hooked up okay. But I really have trouble getting the starter worked back into position under Pearl because for some reason it's a lot easier to drop out of there than it is to get back up in place. There's all kinds of different the cooling lines that go to the radiator are kind of in the way, and just there's an exhaust pipe there that you have to work around. So it was very problematic. Took me a while to do it. And then after all that, I discovered that the camera didn't get any of it. I'm not really sure why, but because I stopped several times and changed angles, and the camera didn't get any of it, except for about the last 20 or 30 seconds, the final shot that I did. It worked. And so I got the starter back on under the car with a lot of trouble. Just use your imagination. And then I had this little 20-second segment just to prove I really was under there. All right, that's snugged into position. Now let's go back up inside the cab, see if we can't get the top bolt in place. Okay, let's see if we can get the top bolt in. Nope, it actually lined up pretty easily, I think. Well, I say that, maybe it didn't thread. Not really sure. Well, I'd say it's gone in pretty good. Let's see if we can finish it up with the wrench. Short socket again. Vacuum hose out of the way. I think it's getting pretty snug. That's a lot easier than putting the bottom one on. But I do have to say, just for the record, at least from my experience, putting these starters back on just a wee bit harder than getting them off of there. All right. So that's got the starter back on. And before you say, Russ, you forgot something, I crawled back under Pearl and tightened that bolt up, firmed it up like it should be. I just didn't show you. I had so much trouble working under there before, I didn't feel like hassling with the camera and stuff. Okay, but it's done. The starter's locked down. It's in the spot. Okay. Now, next problem is, what is the problem? Okay, we know the starter works. We know everything's okay. So the problem's got to be somewhere between the battery and the starter. Duh. I had comments from several of you this week telling me to check the starter solenoid switch. Now this is a little switch. It's actually a solenoid because it's a relay. It's called a starter relay in a lot of vehicles. It's called a starter switch in some. It's not to be confused with the ignition switch that's on the dashboard where you put the key in and turn it. It's not what we're talking about here. Whenever you turn that key, it sends power to this switch. It's a relay, and that in turn sends the power to the starter. It keeps you from having the high amperage current on that switch in the dashboard, which of course reduces the chance, one, of you getting shocked, and two, of having to use heavy wiring to go from that switch all the way through the circuit. Okay, so it's got a very specific purpose. And several of you said, check that, because they do go bad. And if they go bad, you get no start. Well, it's not a hard thing to check, because it's located right here. Dodge technicians call it the starter switch. At least that's what it says it is on the schematics. So you got heavy cables. You got this big red one. This is the positive coming from the battery. Goes to here. This cable goes on back to the starter. This is what will supply power to the starter, and it is hooked up direct. But this is that smaller wire that goes to the starter, that goes to the solenoid. And you see, it's separate. There's no direct power to it. What this does is activate the solenoid on the top of the starter. When that solenoid pulls in, that's what turns the motor on the starter and gets everything going. So when you turn the key inside, you complete a circuit that completes this circuit right here from there to there. And that starts your vehicle. We are not getting that. So there's a good chance this switch is bad. And there's a real easy way to check that. You take a screwdriver, you touch one and you touch the other, and you see the starter works. So we have a bad ignition switch. And again, that's not the switch on the dashboard. It's this solenoid switch on the firewall under the hood. So now we know what we need to replace. And once we do that, we can be sure the rest of the starting circuit is working like it should. The good news is our starter's good. We have no problems there. We didn't damage it in the little alternator incident. Whether or not we damaged the alternator, well, we'll have to test that out and see. But fact is, the starter circuit's going to work again, and once again, we'll be able to get Pearl's engine to turn over. So now, I get to go buy a starter switch for a 77 Dodge, and I guess we'll get that in place and see where we go from there. Can't do that today. Not going to cover that little job this week either. But because it's starting to get really cold again out here. I'm sure you can hear the wind blowing my plastic cover here and maybe even interfering with the microphone a little bit. So yeah, windy, chilly. Don't like winter cold, but this has been the warmest day I've had to get out here and work on Pearl. I'm glad I could do it, and glad I could bring you along for the ride. Alright, and now, as I get over here in the slightly warmer sunshine, I want to talk to you Gnomies for just a second, man. Kind of heart to heart here. You guys and gals really came through for me this week on this starter analysis. I got comments from several of you saying to, look at that starter switch, look at the solenoid. That's one problem. One viewer even told me how I could take the thing apart and maybe fix it if necessary. And I think it's a lot easier just to go buy one myself. So we're just going to replace that rascal and take care of that. But man, do I ever appreciate your comments and your suggestions. Thanks a lot. Thanks for letting me know what you think. Continue to do so. Comment below about where we are and maybe what we should do next as far as getting that engine ready to run. I still got a carburetor to set up and take care of and get a fuel system going. Gonna have to drop that fuel tank, clean it out. That's just kind of a precautionary measure. So there's plenty of work to be done. You just keep watching and keep your comments coming, because you really do encourage me and inspire me to stay at it here in our restoration of this gorgeous Mobile Traveler motorhome. All right, I'll hang in there if you hang in there. We got us a deal going. In the meantime, if you have not subscribed, shame on you. You can do so below, one little click. Also, give me a thumbs up on the video. Please comment about what's going on. Just let me know you're watching. That's all that's necessary. Our viewer base has been moving upward lately. Subscriptions are increasing. The channel's growing, and you are responsible for that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, let's keep it going. We'll be back next week. get that little relay solenoid dealie replaced, and watch Pearl's engine turn over again. It's a beautiful sight. And see where we go from there. In the meantime, I'm going to get in and warm up. And I hope you're staying warm too, okay? Thank you, Gnomies. I love you guys. I'm Russ, and we will talk later.